Story 1. Biggest win. We are unkillable. No cancer, no heart disease, no chronic illnesses, and all my grandparents lived well into their 90s and died in their sleep. Biggest fail. Anxiety and depression. We live long and are miserable. Story 2. I never get body odor, not at all, even after going to the gym or during 45 degrees Celsius summers. My friends say I am a medical mystery. Story 3. My hair is still very thick and full well into my 50s and will likely remain so, as did all the men in my family on both sides. The tallest men in my family are 5 feet 9 inches at best on both sides. Story 4. Hey, original poster. 49-year-old married father of 2 in the United Kingdom here. Biggest win. Full head of reasonably well-behaved hair. Biggest fail. Predisposition to alcohol misuse. 18 months sober after 30 years of trying to drink myself happy. Story 5. I struck a lot of 6s and 7s. I do not have many significant genetic advantages or disadvantages. I am consistently just fine in everything. Except teeth. My teeth are cursed. Story 6. I inherited my father and grandfather's weak heart, but I have perfectly straight teeth without braces. They align so well that the dentist did not believe they were natural. I may pass away young, but with a good smile. Story 7. Win. 6 feet 4 inches tall and left-handed. A massive win for being a boxer. Oh wow, a very tall boxer. Do you look super badass and tough as well? I hear you ask. No, I look like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Story 8. Black kid from New Orleans with a dark-skinned dad and a light-skinned mom. Dad is 6 feet 1 inch tall, smart, and blessed with a lot of common sense. He ran track in college, specializing in the 200 and 400 meters. Mom is smaller, 5 feet 4 inches tall, gorgeous, but has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Son is 5 feet 11 inches tall, a natural athlete who can play anything. Although he is not as fast as a track runner, he can still reach speeds of 21 miles per hour and is a strong player on the soccer field. I inherited all the athleticism from my dad and all the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder from my mom. Story 9. 5 feet 10 inches female, naturally thin with a curvy figure, lost all baby weight without trying. Severe eczema on the face, arms, and legs during middle school and throughout high school, still physically and emotionally scarred. Story 10. My sturdy farm wife body, my ingenuity and lack of functional fixedness. Actually, I am not sure which is the win and which is the fail. Story 11. They are one and the same. I have no sense of smell. That said, I do not get grossed out by bad odors at all. The drawback is I cannot tell if I have body odor or not. I had to have a body odor talk with my boss at work. Story 12. My win. I have never had to shave my legs because my leg hair never grows. My fail. Just a whiff of carbohydrates and I will probably gain weight, so I have to constantly be conscious of my diet. Story 13. I'd say Marfan syndrome. Downsides include heart problems, tricuspid, mitral and aortic valve insufficiency, and severe scoliosis. Upsides, I'm very tall, can never gain weight, cuts and burns heal quickly due to excess collagen, my joints never ache, and I'm very flexible at 40. I also have great skin despite not taking care of it. I still have a full head of hair, while my dad and 3 brothers went bald in their 20s. Overall, mostly positives. I inherited my dad's alcoholism, though. Story 14. I can lick my own elbow. It is the single greatest thing about me. Worst? My nickname was Puba Head in high school for a reason. I had an absolutely unmanageable mane of hair, and not in a romantic or delightful way. Story 15. Good health and no family history of heart disease, diabetes, or any hereditary cancers. No significant mental or neurological problems in my family history either, apart from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which I inherited from my father. Poor dental health also inherited from my father. I am definitely contributing to my dentist's children's college expenses. Story 16. Win, tallness. I'm a 6'4" woman. We are all extremely strong with unbelievable strength. Little or no pollen or pet hair allergies. Fails, mental illness from both sides of the family, and I developed severe back disease. On a lighter note, my oldest brother and I inherited terrible vision as well. Story 17. I do not have much, just a full figure and an hourglass shape, but I have been effectively disabled since I was 27, with around 30 mental and physical diagnoses, with more coming in. Story 18. Win. Full head of thick auburn hair. All the men on my dad's side kept their hair almost their entire lives. I also have an extremely fast metabolism, especially for a 41-year-old who eats poorly. Fail. Diabetes runs on both sides of my family, as does a predisposition to addiction, specifically alcohol. I quit drinking when I was 25 after realizing I was quickly heading down the same path. No diabetes yet, thankfully, but with the amount of sugar I consume, I have a feeling I will be in trouble as I get older. Story 19. I have beautiful features such as eyes and hair. I also have challenges with mental health. What I would give to not have mental health issues in my genetic lottery. Story 20. Smart, multiple patents in the first decade of my career. Chronic depression caused my career to last less than a decade. Story 21. Biggest win. I am 6 feet tall, handsome, smart, and funny. Biggest loss. Major depressive disorder, or whatever term is used for months-long periods during which I can barely function. Food allergies. Story 22. For my biggest failure, let's talk about what I did not inherit from my genes. Both my parents told me they never had bad acne as teenagers. I had it terribly. Story 23. I have a strong immune system. Despite teaching in an elementary school, I take only about 1 day off per year due to illness. This is not out of stubbornness. If I feel sick, they can find a substitute. However, I did inherit my mother's depression. Story 24. Ability to tan and is very carbohydrate sensitive. If I reduce carbohydrates, I lose body fat quickly as long as I keep my protein intake high. My downside is that I am carbohydrate sensitive and can gain excess abdominal fat rapidly. Cookies, donuts, and poutine are challenging for me. Additionally, I have a very difficult time adding muscle mass. Story 25. Win. I got the tall genes. Most of my family is under 5 feet 8 inches, but I enjoy the weather up at 6 feet. I also have thick, jet black hair that at 40 has not shown any signs of graying, even after years of abuse. I wash my hair with shampoo twice a day and apply hair wax every morning. Loss. Hereditary cardiac issues and addiction to smoking, which no male member of my family has managed to avoid. Story 26. Win. I have amazing skin quality for my age. I am nearly 30, and people tell me I look more than 10 years younger than I am. I have an olive skin tone, which I absolutely love. Loss. It is slightly difficult to say, but there are mental illnesses on one side of my family which has resulted in generational trauma. I want my generation to be the one to break that cycle. Story 27. I am charming, tall, strong, and attractive. I am impulsive, socially unaware, prone to addiction, and flighty. Story 28. Pros. Very little body hair outside underarms and nether region. Cons. Cannot grow a beard. The best I can get is a line under the chin. Also, I am cursed with the double-edged sword of a hummingbird's metabolism. Story 29. An abundance of natural muscle in my shoulders and arms. Spinal stenosis and degenerative disease. Story 30. I do basically nothing to take care of my face, and I do not know if I have ever had more than one blemish on it at a time. My back is a bit problematic. Story 31. I do not know if this counts, but I am very logical and understanding. I can quickly figure out how a person wants to be interacted with or treated, basically what kind of friend or person they need at the moment. Just like my mother and her mother. My grandmother's father was also said to be very intuitive with the psyche of others as well. My forehead is roughly 76 inches long. I have a widow's peak. To make sure I look soulless enough. My eyes are bright blue and I have a resting bitch face. Story 32. My teeth. I had braces as an adult and had 8 teeth pulled out because they were very crooked. However, I cannot get cavities. It is a gene that both my father and his father have had. Story 33, good genes overall in the health department and skin and staying young department. However, allergic to basically everything. Story 34, I have minimal body odor. I have very fine, thin hair, very little body hair, and diabetes runs in my family. Story 35, I do not have any medical conditions besides allergies. Fail, I am the only one who has allergies. Story 36. My dad is in his 80s and he only recently started to have gray hair. Hopefully, I will still have a head of black hair when I get that old. Both of our children have Loeys-Dietz syndrome. One has already had pectus excavatum surgery. The other child will likely need surgery as well. Story 37. My father has the worst love handles, and none of his 5 children or 7 grandchildren are immune to them. We all have them, no matter how skinny or fit we are. Story 38. I have lovely teeth. Last week, my dental hygienist said, "Wow, beautiful," after I opened my mouth for her. At the end of the cleaning, she asked if I had ever had braces. When I said no, she said, "Your teeth are perfect. Addiction is a serious issue. I cannot name one person in my entire family who is not affected." My sister managed to knock her teeth into her skull and dent a porcelain bathtub with them. I am glad my choice of addiction was not methamphetamine. Story 39. I do not gain weight easily. Regardless of my diet or exercise routine, I never gain more than a couple of kilograms. If I begin a regimen, I lose weight very quickly, and it has to be adjusted or I start losing weight excessively. The downside is that my gums and teeth are very sensitive. I need a dental checkup every 6 months, or I risk losing teeth. Story 40. Height. Lose. Height. It's a win because my girlfriend loves how tall I am. I can get things off tall shelves. I could play netball successfully as a defender. That's really about it, though. It's a loss because it makes me really self-conscious. I feel awkward and hulking all the time. I can never find pants that fit me or long-sleeve shirts where the sleeves actually reach my wrists. I used to hang over the end of my bed growing up. It also limited the progression of my career, although I ended up changing the trajectory, and I'm happy with where I am now. I always have to pay extra on planes for seats with more legroom if I want to be comfortable. I'm only 5 feet 10 inches, but as a woman, that's just enough to make life a bit uncomfortable. Story 41. I can literally eat and drink whatever I want and not gain weight. Also, I have no chronic health problems, digestive issues, allergies, or anything else that everyone my age seems to have. Loss. I feel very unattractive. Story 42. Loss. Predisposition to cancer, autism, mental illness, and addiction. The only way to avoid these is by never indulging in alcohol or addictive substances. I was not warned about any of these conditions due to adoption, and because the sperm donor is a poor person. Instead of preventative measures, I receive chemotherapy and face a probable premature end. I share literally no positive traits with my genetic relatives. Absolutely poor genetic luck. Story 43. Personality is at 100%. Reading feels like a chore, and it has single-handedly held me back. I am very intelligent and smart, but I feel stagnant. I am currently working on jumpstarting my abilities by learning how to learn. Story 44. Hair is still brown at 74. None of my siblings have gray hair. I have been taking esomeprazole since 2000 and other medications before that. My stomach gets upset by alcohol, dairy, and chocolate. Story 45. Biggest win, I don't get sunburned, which, considering I'm Caucasian, is valuable. I've never needed sunscreen. It comes from my Portuguese grandfather. My skin is also really resilient overall. It's like supple leather. It doesn't sunburn, heals fast, and rarely scars. I've never had a scar that doesn't end up fading. As for the downsides, I'm bipolar type 1 and a recovering drug addict. Both conditions run in my family. You win some, you lose some. Life goes on. Story 46. Positives. I am reasonably good looking, and at the age of 63, I still have a head of thick, dark hair. I am quite intelligent and artistic, and I play guitar. I have only recently found the confidence to say these things, so please be kind. Negatives. I am often unwell with various minor ailments. My soft tissue is very prone to injury. I struggle with self-doubt and have suffered from mental health issues for years. It seems I inherited some of my father's mental health challenges. Story 47. I am 193 centimeters tall, 92 kilograms in weight, and have a body fat percentage of 13% with barely any effort. I have an enormous forehead and am losing my hair. I am going to become like Rick from White Lotus Season 3. Story 48. Extremely fast metabolism. I can eat whatever I want, but early onset Alzheimer's has affected 4 generations in my family. I expect to live until my mid-50s or so. Story 49. Biggest win and fail all in one. Large breasts. Men appreciate them, but bra expenses are extremely high when trying to find something comfortable. Story 50. My biggest win is that I have large breasts. My biggest challenge is that I have sagging breasts, which cause me back pain, and I have to pay $80 for a bra. Story 51. Biggest win. Vast memory and excellent pattern recognition skills. Biggest fail. Male pattern baldness began when I was 14. I was completely bald on top by 21. Story 52. Biggest fail. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Biggest win. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. My brain can do things yours cannot. That is both a blessing and a curse. Story 53. Win. Colored eyes. Fail very hairy. I am Middle Eastern and a woman, which makes it more challenging. I have spent and continue to spend thousands of dollars on laser hair removal. Story 54. Well, I was born smart, I guess. Smart enough to get scholarships into universities for medicine, nuclear engineering, or anything else if I wanted to. I chose something more business-oriented and made millions before 40. I own several houses and run 2 sizable businesses, now controlling over $100 million in assets and revenues. As life would have it, my older son is autistic. He is 4 years old. He isn't so bad that he throws objects or has tantrums every few steps, but he is nonverbal and had to repeat a year at a top private school so far. The world has a funny way of balancing things out sometimes. Story 55. Win. I have a high intelligence quotient and can recognize patterns in data and human behavior. I can identify liars most of the time, diagnose problems at their sources, and ask the right questions to help experts perform at their best. This ability runs in my father's family. My great-grandfather predicted the Great Depression, my grandfather could perform naval war games mentally, and my father successfully picked startups in the 1990s. Fail. A foot deformity ran in my mother's family. Most of the women had it. My siblings did not, but I developed it in one foot. I had a deformed right foot that developed arthritis by age 37, even though I wore supportive shoes like Birkenstocks. The good news is that effective surgeries are now available, and I was able to have one because I have decent health insurance at my current job. The recovery was long and painful, and a year later, I am still not fully recovered. Story 56. Biggest win. Musical inclination. Biggest fail. God just couldn't make me 6 feet tall. He had to make me 5 feet 11 and 8/10 inches. Story 57. Incredible bone density and very good teeth with excellent enamel. I am also allergic to many things such as chemicals, foods, and environmental factors. I never know when I will break out in a rash or become ill from eating the wrong food. Story 58. I have to say my metabolism and ability to maintain weight are within 10 pounds. I am 33 and still weigh the same as I did my senior year of high school, 170 pounds. Unfortunately, I cannot put on weight when I try to build muscle. The highest I reached was 185, and my body literally would not gain any more. My biggest challenge is alcoholism since it runs in my family, but I am in recovery. Story 59. I have always been thin without trying. I can lose 5 pounds very quickly if I want to. However, I have a 70% chance of Alzheimer's disease later in life. Story 60. Win, intelligence, and empathy. Fail. All the anxiety that comes from those two combined, autism, chronic depression, and the loss goes on forever. Story 61. Pretty but mentally unstable due to some genes prone to depression. I think I inherit anxiety from my mother. Story 62. I have a larger than average penis. It also has a significant amount of hair along the entire underside. I need to shave my shaft regularly. Story 63. Tall and reasonably attractive. Diagnosed with a somewhat aggressive case of Crohn's disease at 18. Definitely went go big or go home for the advantages and disadvantages of existing as myself. Story 64. Biggest win. Significant confidence. I have always been naturally skilled in intimacy, except for the first few times. Blue eyes and a sense of humor help me connect. I am reasonably attractive. Biggest fail. My eyes are poor, my teeth are bad, my feet hurt, my knees ache, my back is weak. I have severe attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and I am prone to diabetes, cancer, and heart disease on both sides of my family. It is rare for us to live past 65. I began balding at 30, have an addictive personality, and struggle with severe insomnia. Still loving life, though. Story 65. Great head of hair, reasonably attractive, funny, charming, and friendly. Also, Dad's side has a history of heart disease, heart attacks, and aggressive cancer that leaves most of them dead by 50. Additionally, the curse of the Irish. Story 66. My family, mostly on my mother's side, and I are very physically capable despite the fact that I never go outside. We are strong, tall, and have high endurance. Of course, I developed asthma. Story 67. Pro. I will probably never show my age until I am at least 50 years old. Con. My breasts are small and I hate it. Story 68. Biggest win. I don't really know. Maybe the fact I have a half-sister from all this that I started talking to in recent years. Biggest fail, my father's existence. I added him on Facebook when I was 12 because I wanted to get to know him, and he blocked me. So that being said, I've assumed I'm not welcome in his life. Before anybody asks. Yes, it has affected me in many ways over the years. However, I'm not going to waste my time on somebody who won't give me a second of theirs to hold a possibly temporary conversation. I chose to view my biological father as someone who disregarded me because he thinks he's better. In reality, I grew up with my biological mother and was fortunate to be adopted by my stepfather at a young age, so that's my dad. My biological dad is just a guy that I tried to know. It has been kind of hard having my own kids and trying to figure out family medical history. So if anybody is concerned about what they pass on to their children, you may want to ask distant family members that you don't really acknowledge about your parental or genetic history, which is why my sister is awesome. Story 69. My family's genetics follow one of two patterns: tall and lean but bald, or short and stockier with a full head of hair. I inherited the height and the hair until I decide to stop taking finasteride. Story 70. Biggest win. My naturally thick Indian hair. Biggest loss. Genetic predisposition to several chronic illnesses and multiple terminal diseases. Story 71. Wins. I don't sweat unless I do very tough workouts. Great bodybuilding and athletic genes. I have never used creatine or protein powder like whey, but am naturally built with mass, strength, and endurance. Nice body frame. I can eat a lot without gaining fat. Fails. I don't know why, but maybe due to the lack of sweat, my body heats up like a nuclear reactor, which is why cold places are my favorite. A little bit of acne after eating chocolate. Curly hair. Height is 5 feet 8 inches. Story 72. Beautiful head of hair that many people comment on, and developing those unusual moles that get large enough that I swear they call me mama. I go once a year to have them removed. Grandparents came over on the boat from Italy on dad's side and from Ireland on mom's side. Story 73. Win. In 2-inch heels. I have a nice womanly shape and green eyes inherited from my grandmother. Draw in flats, going to work in a skirt. I have been asked more than once if I am a man. My leg length makes me look like a tree stump as a woman, but a compact, competent man. Not a loss, but a draw regarding my fashion goals. Loss. Depression and related challenges. Story 74. Biggest win. I am big, tall, and broad in all the right places. Height, feet, glutes, thighs, shoulders, and more. Biggest fail. Started balding at around 18. Story 75. I hardly sweat at all, which is good, but when I do, it seems to come only from my upper lip. Why? Story 76. I still have my hair. I am short, have bad teeth, poor eyesight, allergies, eczema, and am riddled with anxiety, but I have my hair. Story 77. High intelligence, very helpful. Look young for my age. Kidney stones, allergy, shorter leg like my mother and brother, cardiac arrhythmia. Story 78. Good teeth. Sometimes I wonder how I keep getting away with doing the bare minimum for them. The downside is that I have energy levels as if I am 10 years older and need an above-average amount of sleep. My peers being able to party all night and then still be somewhat functional the next day was foreign to me. Now that I am actually 10 years older than my 18-year-old self, I just feel sick when I lack proper sleep. Story 79. A win, I imagine, is my height and bearing or appearance from my maternal grandfather. I have been told that I am handsome and, a couple of times, cute. The biggest flaw would be a slight hunchback from my grandmother and my grandfather's unforgiving personality. Upset my grandfather, and you are dead to him for life. Story 80. All my genetic flaws can be seen from outside. Short stature, shortest boy in all of my schools. Nearsightedness from a young age, and not gifted in any sports no matter how hard I try. However, I am glad my genetic strengths made up for all of it and I would never trade them. A full head of hair. My father passed away at 75 with a full head of hair. I inherited his cleverness. I am sure this is genetic as I was not a very good student. My father did not have any formal education and was a self-made millionaire. My two sons inherited this as well. We can easily understand complex concepts and learn new things quickly. It is hard to explain. Like all of us, we were at the top of our class without much effort. Subjects like complex mathematics and financial instruments are simple to us. Story 81. Big win. Part Asian genes. My father is 65 but looks 40. Big loss. Big forehead. The whole family has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Story 82. Win. Red hair and blue eyes. Dual recessive genes. Less than 1% of the world's population have this pairing. Loss. Red hair and blue eyes. I am allergic to the sun and love hot weather. Story 83. Fail. 5 feet 5 inches man. Win hair and good lips for a man. When I was younger, some people teased me for it, but then apparently women really liked them, so that is cool. Story 84. Biggest win. No major physical illness in family history. I was 8 years old when my 95-year-old great-grandmother died. Parents tested clear for some conditions that run in my family, meaning I will not get them. Biggest loss. Dad's side has mild autism traits. It seemed to build up and lead to me. It is still quite mild, but I think it led me to develop fibromyalgia, which is more common in neurodivergent people. Story 85. Central heterochromia was my win. My biggest loss is 100% my eczema. Even into my mid-20s, when it typically improves for most people, I still have cracked hands. I used to get it on the creases of my joints, but now it is just on my hands. This makes showering, washing dishes, washing my hands, and swimming a literal hell. Story 86. Long, beautiful hair, thick eyelashes and eyebrows, decently tall, and in the upper half of average size. However, I have absolutely awful skin, which is a hereditary condition from my father. Psoriasis affects 80% of my father's side of the family, so I barely have to worry about the weather tomorrow before I break out in red, scabby eczema. Story 87. I am tall, intelligent, have symmetrical features, great eyes, and suffer from severe depression, anxiety, and fear of crowded spaces. Story 88. Win. I don't really grow any leg hair, so I don't have to shave. Fail. I am prone to keloids in my collarbone and upper back of shoulders area. Story 89. Win. Intelligence. I have a high intelligence quotient. Fail, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I cannot focus long enough to use that intelligence. I have about 10 minutes of usable focus before distraction. The result is that I can only do things that do not require any focus. Also, every 7 or 8 years I shift career. Story 90. Win, very tall. I am 6 feet 4 inches. My brother is 6 feet 6 inches. My father is 6 feet 3 inches. Loss. Thyroid issues cause us to be either very thin or obese despite our best efforts to the contrary. Story 91. I am 6 feet 5 inches tall and show no signs of baldness well into my 40s. However, I have autism spectrum disorder, long-term depression and anxiety, and a family history of schizophrenia. Story 92. Beautiful eyes with long eyelashes. Win. Loss. Cannot see well without thick glasses and cannot wear contact lenses. Story 93. In my 50s with not a single gray hair. I have the muscle mass of a professional athlete despite being very lazy. I also inherited the ability to endure a harsh Scottish winter in a single potato without losing any weight. I have multiple sclerosis, an autoimmune condition that runs down the maternal line. Story 94. Win. I have a very strong immune system and rarely get sick. My family is generally very healthy. My grandmother is 94 and only recently started developing chronic health issues. Loss. My immune system is too strong. Inflammation is a constant issue due to an autoimmune disorder. My father has a different autoimmune disorder, so I am worried about developing one as well. Fortunately, I have no allergies. Story 95. Basically, all of my senses are above average. Hearing, sight, and taste. My biggest challenge is that I have intense allergies to pollen and similar substances. This requires me to take several antihistamine medications every day from mid-March to November. Even then, if I go outside in June, I still suffer from allergic reactions. My biggest disappointment is that my body is much weaker than it should be. My mother trained with Olympic-level athletes when she was young. My grandmother was a trainer for an Olympic team, and my sister beat 10th grade boys in arm wrestling while she was in 8th grade. Meanwhile, I am weak and get sick easily. Story 96. I am tall, flexible, and cannot gain weight regardless of what I eat, which is an advantage. I wear size 14.5 shoes, United Kingdom, with an extra narrow foot, which is challenging. Finding shoes and trainers is very difficult. Story 97. Biggest win. Hair grows very quickly and I have been told I look young for my age. Biggest fail. Astigmatism, hearing loss, hyperextension in the knees, essential tremor, hemorrhoids, gastritis, gastroesophageal reflux disease, and constant chronic fatigue. Additionally, cancer occurs on both sides of my family. Story 98. Win. I don't gain weight. I eat about 3 times the recommended portion of everything, as I always have. I weigh 60 kilograms at 170 centimeters. I haven't exercised properly in years, yet I don't gain weight. Loss. My body is just broken. My joints don't work the way they should, and it causes immense pain. You know how people in their 30s start complaining about their back and how it always hurts? Mine started doing that at 16. Story 99. Win. Amazing skin. Never did anything to deserve it. Makes me look great and younger than I am. Loss. Really struggle to lose weight even when tracking extremely accurately. I think my basal metabolic rate is efficient. Story 100. I would say I am generally attractive when I put the effort in, but I have a 90% chance of developing 2 different types of cancer. Story 101. I have perfect teeth with almost no damage despite not brushing regularly for nearly 10 years. I also have type 2 diabetes and diabetic retinopathy. Story 102. Biggest win. I am really good at sports and have strong athletic genes. Biggest loss. I have pretty severe irritable bowel syndrome. Story 103. Win. Intelligence. Fail. Developed unusual vitiligo with small white spots all over my arms. Also, a million freckles creating an interesting effect. Should not have spent so much time sun tanning in the 1970s and 1980s. Story 104. I barely sweat under my armpits. I have never ruined any shirts or felt embarrassed on a hot day. However, I have horrible varicose veins on the backs of both my legs. I never wear shorts in public. Story 105. My family on both sides has no history of any major or minor health conditions. My grandmother and mother are allergic to carrots, and that is it. The issue is that all the men on my father's side went bald in their mid to late 20s, and I did as well. Story 106. Biggest win. A little autism and a hyperactive brain. Biggest loss. Predisposition for heart problems, eye problems, gum and teeth issues, Alzheimer's disease, and mental health problems. Running at 99% with an internal monologue that never stops is exhausting. Story 107. Biggest win. Teeth might as well be made of stainless steel. I am probably going to keep most of my hair. Biggest fail. My 60th birthday will be a genetic coin toss to see if I take after my father's side and live to 100 with only a few minor joint problems, or take after my mother's side and die in my late 70s from a combination of cancers and dementia. Story 108. Win. From my father's side, we look very young for our age and can easily pass for someone 10 years younger. Fail. From my mother's side, there is a disfiguring genetic condition. I guess I might look young and unattractive, or the unattractiveness might cancel out the fountain of youth. Story 109. Biggest health risks. Prone to cancer on both sides of the family, insulin resistance and obesity run in my mother's side. So it is a struggle to maintain a healthy weight. I still have to find a positive after 35 years. Story 110. Win. 6 feet 4 inches tall, blue eyes. Fail. I am Scottish, so very pale, with a tendency to drink my own body weight in alcohol every weekend. I also have bunions. Story 111. On my father's side, they all live to about 95 years old without serious health issues. On my mother's side, it is completely the opposite. I will tell you more soon. I am in my 50s. Story 112. The biggest health issue is diabetes, which affects my entire mother's side of the family. On the right side of my mouth, I produce a lot of saliva, so I almost never have a dry mouth or throat. I have also never had a cavity. Story 113. Biggest win. I have no thyroid issues, and my metabolism is consistently that of a 15-year-old with no problems related to weight gain. Biggest fail. I am a grower, and it is always a surprise how much it can grow. Story 114. In my mid-50s, my hair is just starting to go a little gray. Both my grandfather and mother went gray very late in life. I have what my optometrist once called a severe astigmatism and now need 2 different pairs of glasses to manage daily. They cannot make bifocals or contacts that work properly for me, and LASIK will not work either. Full surgical reconstruction might help, but there is no guarantee. Story 115. Youthful face and smaller size. I look 26 to 29, but I am nearly in my mid-30s. Celiac disease, trauma, anxiety, and immunocompromised stomach and body. But I am small, so... Woo. Story 116. Being left-handed is both a strength and a weakness. Growing up, I was unusually strong for my age and weight, but I never had tools that allowed me to write and study comfortably, such as desks designed for left-handed people in the 1970s. I never played sports properly, had a strong pitching arm, but never a proper glove. However, my wife is left-handed, and so is our daughter, so at home, things feel right. Story 117. I don't get acne. I'm on medication that causes worse acne because it contains estrogen. My mother suffered horribly with acne as a teenager. However, my father and his sisters never had a spot, so I rarely get breakouts unless I use something new on my face or I am sick. Story 118. Biggest win. I am 6'5" or 195 centimeters. Biggest fail. I am 6'5" or 195 centimeters. Honestly, I am just happy I did not grow any taller. I have enough problems with my height already. I am not talking about physical issues like knee or back pain that many others have. It is just hard to find clothing that fits and I often bump my head. Story 119. Probably adenine, adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, cytosine, guanine, adenine, thymine, guanine, adenine, guanine, adenine, guanine, 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 cytosine, guanine, adenine, guanine, guanine, thymine, adenine, 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 thymine, guanine, thymine, cytosine, adenine, guanine, cytosine, guanine. But then there's guanine, 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 adenine, thymine, 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 adenine, cytosine, thymine, adenine, thymine, cytosine, thymine, adenine, thymine, guanine, guanine, adenine, thymine, guanine, thymine. Adenine, cytosine, guanine, adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, so I guess it all evens out in the end. Story 120. I can eat all day sitting in bed and still be very slim. I have been like this my entire life. On the other hand, I am prone to heart disease and already have some issues in my early 30s. Story 121. Biggest win. One of my kidneys has a second set of valves, so it behaves like two kidneys. Biggest fail. One entire side of my body is about 1% bigger than the other. It is not often noticeable until I point it out. Shoe sizes differ by about half a US shoe size. One leg is less than a centimeter longer than the other, so I will likely have hip problems as I get older. Story 122. Win. Straight teeth, thick hair, clear skin, good eyesight. Loss. Several of my family members on my mother's side have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. On my father's side, kidney disease affects 6 of his 12 siblings. Story 123. Biggest win. I am over 6 feet tall. Biggest loss. Baldness runs on both sides of my family to varying degrees, especially on my mother's side, and I fear I do not have long before I start to lose my hair. Story 124. I was born with a genetic disease that will almost certainly develop into aggressive cancer. However, I have never had cavities or any teeth problems at all. So I guess that is a win. Story 125. The biggest win is autism and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Both made me very creative. The biggest challenge is obsessive compulsive disorder, which does not have upsides and will always be a tiny voice in my head. Story 126. Getting bald in the early 30s, my brother has my hair genes, but I have perfect eyesight while the rest of the family have worn glasses since a young age. Story 127. Fail? Short. Our family has always been very short, and I am now the tallest, the oldest boy at a paltry 5 feet 7 inches. Win? I will get back to you. Story 128. The biggest win is that I have had virtually no problems with my teeth. The biggest loss is that I can barely build any muscle and barely look like I lift, even though I have been a gym enthusiast for over 10 years. Story 129. Biggest win. My creativity and imagination. Biggest challenge. My numerous mental and physical disorders. Story 130. As a person who has always been genetically diverse, I would say my clear skin and pretty greenish blue-gray eyes are my best features. The downside is that I gain weight easily. Story 131. Short tongue, girthy eggplant. I get lots of compliments on the latter, but I cannot take credit. I suppose I could pass them on to my mum. She made it. Story 132. Win height. I am 6 feet 2 inches tall, while my mother and sister are 5 feet 4 inches, and my father was 5 feet 10 inches. Fail, a hereditary blood disorder that increases my risk of developing blood clots. Story 133. Biggest genetic win? I am in my 40s and everyone I meet thinks I am in my late 20s. Biggest genetic fail? None so far, to be honest. Knock on wood. I guess I need an extra day after drinking. Story 134. My organs are on the wrong side. I had a liver transplant. It was not caused by anything. The liver just died when I was a baby. Story 135. Win. IQ, reasonably tall and well endowed. Loss. Chronic issues with lower esophageal sphincter since childhood, including gastroesophageal reflux disease and insomnia. Prone to anxiety, depression, and self-medication. Currently doing better than many close relatives, but still affected. Uncertain. One side of the family is extremely long-lived, with ages ranging from 90 to over 100 years, while the other side tends to have shorter lifespans, around 60 to 70 years. Story 136. 6 feet 8 inches tall. A curse and a blessing, and I keep growing into my 30s. All my physical issues and some of my mental ones stem from being taller than almost everyone I have ever met. But I get to scare random kids just by existing, so woo me. Story 137. Among all of my nuclear family and known blood relatives, I am the last to maintain perfect 20/20 vision. On the other hand, I am the only one allergic to cats, dogs, horses, and hay. My grandmother owned a stable farm, and I could name the animals but not touch them. Story 138. Biggest win. I am good looking, I get compliments, and I like every part of my body except my bloated belly because of irritable bowel syndrome. Biggest challenge. I am gay, struggling with mental health issues including probable borderline personality disorder, prone to depression, anxiety, and substance abuse, and often socially awkward. Story 139. Win. 6 feet 5 inches, blonde, blue eyes, doctorate, university medalist. Fail, von Hippel-Lindau disease, terminal renal cancer. Story 140. Biggest wins. Naturally happy, instant positive attitude of, it could be worse. Very sane, non-addictive personality. Biggest failure. Lack of clear vision from either side. Story 141. Win. I have very long arms for my height. I am 5 feet 10 inches tall with a wingspan of 6 feet 2 inches. Loss. I cannot burp. Every time I try, the gas bubble gets stuck in my throat and ends up going back down, irritating my stomach. No doctor has been able to figure me out. I have even tried Botox shots in my throat for retrograde cricopharyngeus dysfunction, and it did not help. Story 142. Slightly tanned with good facial hair and resistant to skin cancer and sunburn, but late bloomers have heart issues, appear slightly aged in appearance, and have diabetes. Story 143. Biggest win, healthy skin, looking young at an older age, emotional intelligence. Biggest fail. Inherited my grandmother's height and face shape, being 5 feet tall and having a round face. Story 144. I suppose this is both. My completely hairless Asian genes, a man approaching his 40s, and my body is as smooth as porcelain, including my face. Some would say that is a positive. However, being constantly treated like a college intern at the company I manage by my own customers is not so great. Story 145. I am 60 but could pass for 45. No matter how much I try, I cannot get rid of the spare tire. Story 146. Born without wisdom teeth. Hypermobile, not severe, and have bone-on-bone arthritis in both knees at the age of 37. Poor candidate for knee replacement due to hypermobility. Story 147. Biggest win, longevity and low predisposition for most diseases. Very little or no known cancer, heart attacks, and similar conditions in my family. Biggest fail, fat. We are mostly fat. It does not kill us for the most part, but fat. Story 148. Grandfather's genes tend to include a protruding jaw and some adult teeth that never grow in. While I have the jaw, it is not as severe as my uncle's, who needed it sectioned. He could fit a finger between his upper and lower teeth without opening his mouth. I have perfectly straight teeth and all of my adult teeth. Some of my cousins did not have the same outcome. 2 of them needed dental implants, and one still has half of her baby teeth. Story 149. Win. I and all the women on my mother's side have healthy, fast-growing hair and nails, and long lashes. My great-grandmother regularly got perms on her thick white hair until she passed away in her late 90s. Fail. As a consequence, I and the women on my mother's side can also grow a thick beard and mustache. A wax lasts about a week before it grows back strongly. It is a constant challenge. Story 150. In all honesty, I am really beautiful and very intelligent. However, I have a chronic illness that disables me. Some days, I cannot leave the couch due to chronic fatigue and other symptoms. You cannot use your intelligence when you are too tired to do anything but sleep. At least I have nice eyes. Story 151. Biggest win. I'm half Italian and half Latino. Biggest challenge. It is very easy for me to gain weight and become plump. I have to do intermittent fasting and go to the gym 4 days a week if I want a chance to have a girlfriend. Story 152. No hangovers. Sounds like a win, but there are many alcoholics in the family. Oh yes, very strong. That is fun. Story 153. Win. Apparently good looks. 6 feet 1 inch tall. Blonde hair and blue eyes. Cannot gain weight no matter how hard I try. Loss. Not having the ability, in my mid-30s, to grow more than a few pubic hairs on my face while all the other males in my family on both sides can grow full beards. I would look very good with a beard. Story 154. Win. Almost photographic memory. I can read something once and remember it almost word for word. I can copy signatures very well too. Loss. Alcoholic family, including myself. I am sober now. Story 155. My biggest win is my eyes from my father. Good shape, color, and long lashes. I have always received compliments. My biggest flaw is my rear end. Both parents were rather flat, so my sister and I are as well. I do not wish it were really big. Just big enough to make pants and jeans fit better. Story 156. I can't explain why, but coronavirus seems to avoid my family like the plague. I am careful about it, but most of my relatives are not and are also unvaccinated. Only 2 of them have ever caught it, once each and very mildly. It defies all reason. My teeth are also more well-behaved than they have any right to be, which I suspect comes from my father's side as I take after him more. As for cancer, many of my father's relatives died from it. That does not necessarily mean I will, but it is not very comforting to think about. My mother also had relatives who died of cancer. Story 157. Win. Good looks, smooth skin, good bone structure. Middle-aged but still look youthful. Fail short. Story 158. Grandpa died of a heart attack at 44. His son, my dad, has stents at 84. My mom has cerebrovascular disease. My grandmother on my mom's side was an alcoholic. Depression and anxiety affect both sides of the family. I am squatting 285 pounds at 49 and have a VO2 max of 44 for my age. Everything works in my body. I am healthy and I train mixed martial arts. I am grateful for all of it. Story 159. Female here. Consistently looking more than 10 years younger than my actual age. I have no hair on my legs, so I never have to shave. I have no odor, so I never have to use deodorant. Both my grandmothers lived past 100 years old. The challenging parts. I am only 5 feet tall and have a smaller body frame. It is hard to shop for clothes and shoes that fit properly since I am between kid sizes and adult sizes. I have a baby face, so people don't take me seriously, especially in professional settings. Story 160. Win. Mental health, intellect, and soft skills. Likeable, with a great career and a lot of resilience. Great friends, great partner. Fail. Physical health. Many chronic illnesses and autoimmune diseases that make every day painful. Thank God I am resilient and have no mental health issues, or I would harm myself. The challenges I face to keep moving forward even when my body does not cooperate are sometimes comical. But I keep moving forward. I would give anything to be healthy for a while. At least there is nothing that will kill me, as far as I know. Story 161. Fail. I was a premature baby. Birth circumstances led to cerebral palsy. I am legally blind in one eye and nearsighted to less than a foot in the other. When my only known allergy is to a class of surgical anesthetics rarely used these days. I have an almost iron stomach and rarely have any problems with most foods. I have an excellent memory for songs and voices, constantly remembering and creating earworms of my favorite artists. Story 162. Wins. I gain muscle very easily. I have central heterochromia, which means blue eyes with yellow rings around the pupil, which people find attractive. I also have a nice figure. Challenges. I have a breast deformity called tuberous breasts, and I am unhappy with their appearance. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and autism. I also have hypermobility. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.